and die and resurrect itself, which means to continually transform in the face of tragedy, is the thing that's the antidote to the painful catastrophe of self-consciousness. It's a staggering idea. I mean, I've studied personality theory for a long time, and the first thing that I've discovered in relationship to this is almost all the personality theories that we have that involve movement towards a state of improved health are predicated on the idea that people transform through a process of painful transformation. It's like dissolution of part of your personality, which is painful and chaotic, and then the reconstruction of that into a more fulfilled form. And the reason that's associated with acceptance of vulnerability is, again, it's brilliant. This is why humility is a virtue from the religious perspective, is that you cannot change until you admit that you're wrong and that part of you has to go. So you have part of admitting your insufficiency is being willing to sacrifice that insufficiency, to let it go, so that something new can rise out of the ashes. And sometimes that can be your whole personality, you know, to the degree that you're pathological in your fundamental structures, man. There may be things that you have to give up that are huge chunks of your life. So the alternative is to be in pain and suffering and misery, and you know, that can turn into cruelty and murderousness and things that are much, much more terrible than mere suffering. So that's the idea here. It's the whole story of human redemption in a single image. Mind-boggling. Brilliant. And you know, it took people thousands of years to think up this image, or maybe tens of thousands of years. So there's so much thought packed into that image that it's beyond, virtually beyond comprehension. It's a remarkable image. Echoes. These are echoes of the tree-like structures that are within, because the tree structure is a structure that many biological forms take. So, you know, that's the nervous system tree. This is really worth meditating on for a bit, because most of us are convinced that our brain, you know, is in our head, and really that's not right. It's just not that accurate. I mean, look at the dissemination of your nervous system throughout your body. You know, your brain is distributed through your body. Your spinal cord's pretty damn smart. You know, it can walk by itself. So, for example, if you take people who are paraplegic, but they've managed spinal damage at a point that they're no longer able to voluntarily control their legs. If you hoist them up and put them on a treadmill and tilt them forward, their legs will walk by themselves. So, because your spinal cord is smart enough to walk. I mean, you need your brain to tell it where to go, but in some people who are paraplegic have been taught to walk in a controlled fall. And so it's quite interesting. So, you know, your spine isn't stupid. It's part of your brain. It's just a lower part that's more associated with movement. But, you know, your whole body is full of central nervous system. There's more neurons in your autonomic nervous system, which is the part of your nervous system that controls your internal organs, than there is in your brain. So, like, you know, you're stuck right in your body. And the idea that you're in your brain in some ways is like a hangover of the soul theory, you know, the Cartesian duality that makes mind and body something separate and united. I mean, I believe there's something to that theory, but, you know, it definitely underestimates the degree to which you're an embodied nervous system, and that the structure of your thought is predicated on the fact that you're in a body, like you're an embodied cognitive creature, and you wouldn't think or be the way you are without the body. It's not like an appendage to your brain. You know, that isn't how it works at all. So you see the brain and the spinal cord as a tree, and you can see the neurons themselves as a tree. So the tree-like structure echoes at different levels of the nervous system. These are very interesting representations. So the man in the lotus position. Why lotus position? It's another tree metaphor. So a lotus is a very interesting plant. So what a lotus is that it grows on water. So the water's deep, and maybe the top of it's clear, but then the bottom of the water is very, very murky and deep and dark. And so it represents the dark elements, say, of the unconscious mind or the unknown that we aren't privy to. And the lotus grows way down into that, and then into the soil below. And so it comes out of the darkness, the soil and the darkness, and then through the dark water, and then up into the clear light. And on the surface of the water, it blooms, and so it opens up like a mandala, like a stained glass window on the right. It opens up like that, and in the middle of that, the Buddha sits in his triangular position, in the lotus position, and that represents enlightenment. And what the whole image represents is the coherent ordering of multiple levels of structure, all the way from the primal material up to the highest level of consciousness. And so the Buddha is like the ultimate flower of the lotus tree, so to speak, just as in Christianity. Christ is the ultimate manifestation of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The very, very analogous ideas, and there's reasons for this too. And part of it is something like, if your psychophysiology was properly adjusted, so you weren't working at cross purposes to yourself, and so that you were nicely aligned, straight up, physically healthy, and not like a defeated lobster scuttling around, the information flow through your nervous system, through your body and your mind would be optimized, and that would enable the reality that you're attached to and part of to flow through you sort of in an untrammeled way. You know, instead of you're all full of cricks and trouble and problems and places that are badly aligned, and you know, you haven't got the opportunity as a consequence to sort of get access to your own wisdom, because you're sort of a bent representation of who you could be. And so part of this, and also the stone and glass that's represented in the cathedrals, is a representation of the idea that there should be a balance between structure and light in you. It's the metaphorical idea, and that you should be properly oriented physically, so that you're in touch with the ground of being in a way that makes you wise and solid. And that's one of the things that enables you to take on the tragedy of existence without becoming weak. I mean, these are they're brilliant ideas.